The Hoshi Ryokan stood like a silent sentinel in the misty hills of Ishikawa, Japan, its wooden beams weathered by over a millennium of rain and time. I, Kaori Tanaka, a 34-year-old historian specializing in Japanese folklore, arrived at the ancient inn on a damp October evening, my camera bag heavy on my shoulder. Founded in 718 AD, the Ryokan claimed the title of the world's oldest continually operating hotel, a living monument to samurai, shoguns, and whispered legends of the unseen. My editor at Mystic Chronicles had dispatched me to investigate persistent rumors of hauntings, promising a feature that would chill readers to their core. "Find the truth beneath the tatami mats," she'd urged over a crackling phone line, her voice tinged with caution. "But don't stir up anything you can't put back to rest." The inn's exterior was deceptively humble, its tiled roof sagging under thick moss, paper lanterns casting soft, wavering glows on the gravel path. Akimoto, the 46th generation innkeeper, greeted me with a deep bow, his eyes warm but shadowed, as if guarding an unspoken truth. "Welcome, Tanaka-san," he said softly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Some rooms hold more than just guests." I offered a polite smile, dismissing his words as theatrical flair, though a faint chill prickled the back of my neck. Inside, the air carried the scent of aged cedar and burning incense, the polished wooden floors creaking under my cautious steps. The lobby was a portal to the past, sliding shoji screens painted with cranes, calligraphy scrolls curling at the edges, a koi pond shimmering faintly in the dim light. My assigned room, a tatami suite with a low lacquered table and neatly folded futon, felt serene yet oppressive, as if the walls themselves were watching. I unpacked my tools, notebook, digital recorder, EMF meter, flashlight, and began my investigation, my heart already racing with anticipation. The Ryokan's history was a tapestry of beauty and shadow, woven through centuries of travelers' tales. Ancient records spoke of pilgrims, merchants, and wandering poets finding solace within these walls, but also of vanishings, unexplained lights, and voices echoing from empty rooms. A 12th century scroll, tucked away in a Kyoto archive, mentioned a presence beneath the springs, tied to the hot onsen that fed the inn's famous baths. I started my exploration in the main hall, where a faded mural depicted a serpentine dragon coiling around a mist-shrouded mountain. Its painted eyes seemed to track my movements, glinting unnaturally in the flickering lantern light. I snapped photos, the camera's flash revealing faint scratches in the wood paneling, jagged like claw marks from some desperate hand. A guestbook from the 1800s lay open on a low table, its pages yellowed and brittle, entries chronicling mundane stays until one, dated 1863, stopped me cold. "The floor hums at midnight. Do not follow the sound." My pulse quickened, a drumbeat echoing in my chest. Humming? I moved to the dining hall, a cavernous space where lacquered tables were set for guests who never arrived. A lone sake cup lay overturned, its contents long evaporated, leaving a dark, uneven stain on the silk tablecloth. Behind a painted screen, I found a locked wooden box, its key hidden inside a cracked porcelain vase. Inside the box was a bundle of letters, their paper fragile as dried leaves, penned by a Meiji-era maid named Hana. October 1887. The guests hear whispers from the springs. They say it calls their names at night. I slipped the letters into my bag, my curiosity now laced with a growing unease. Growing up in Kyoto, I'd been raised on ghost stories, yore haunting ancient shrines, spirits lingering in the shadows of old homes. My grandmother, a shrine maiden at a small Inari temple, once claimed she saw a shadow move without a source when I was 10, its form flickering in the moonlight. That memory had ignited my passion for folklore, driving me to document Japan's hidden histories, the tales too strange for textbooks. Now standing in the Ryokan's ancient corridors, that childhood fear clawed its way back, a warning pulsing in my veins. The inn groaned softly, its wooden frame settling, or so I told myself as I pressed forward. I explored the guest rooms, sliding shoji doors revealing pristine futons and faded silk kimonos hung like specters on wooden racks. In one room, a bronze mirror reflected my tired face, but for a fleeting moment, another figure stood behind me, pale, eyeless, its mouth a dark slash. I blinked, and it was gone, leaving only my own reflection staring back. Paranoia, I insisted, though my hands trembled as I checked my EMF meter, its needle spiking briefly before falling silent. The hot spring baths were my next stop, reached via a stone path lined with flickering lanterns that swayed in the damp breeze. Steam rose from the onsen, the water unnaturally still, reflecting the moon like a polished mirror. A faint hum vibrated through the stone floor, just as the guestbook had described, low and rhythmic, almost like chanting. I recorded the sound, my recorder capturing a faint undertone that seemed to form words I couldn't quite grasp. A journal in the bathhouse, left by a 1920s guest, read, "The water moves without ripples. Something watches from below the surface." My breath hitched, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Something below? I recalled legends of Kappa, mischievous water spirits, but this felt darker, ancient, and far less benign. Dusk deepened, the inn's silence growing heavier, pressing against my eardrums like a physical force. I set up camp in my tatami room, the cool mats grounding me as I unrolled my sleeping bag beside the low table. Sleep was impossible. Hana's letters haunted my thoughts, their words looping in my mind. November 1887. The innkeeper forbids us to speak of the lower chamber. He says it's sealed for our safety, but I hear it call, "Lower chamber?" No map or blueprint of the Ryokan showed such a place, but a structure this old could hide countless secrets beneath its floors. At midnight, the hum grew louder, unmistakable, rising from beneath the tatami like a heartbeat. I pressed my ear to the floor, my heart pounding in sync with the sound. It wasn't mechanical. It was too organic, too alive, like a voice trapped in the earth. Grabbing my flashlight, I searched the inn, my boots echoing in the empty halls. In a storage room filled with dusty crates, I found a loose panel in the floor, revealing a trapdoor etched with warding symbols, ancient kanji for protection and binding. I hesitated, my grandmother's stories echoing in my mind. Some doors are meant to stay closed, Kaori. But I'd come for answers, and the truth was so close I could feel it. The trapdoor creaked open, revealing a narrow stone staircase spiraling into darkness. My flashlight cut through the gloom, illuminating damp walls carved with spirals, eyes and hands reaching upward, as if clawing for freedom. The air grew colder with each step, thick with the scent of sulfur and rotting earth. At the bottom, a tunnel stretched forward, its walls slick with moisture, leading to a low-ceilinged chamber where roots dangled like gnarled veins. In the center stood a stone well, its edges worn smooth, pulsing with a faint blue light that seemed to breathe. I leaned over, my reflection distorted in the glowing water, ripples forming without cause. Visions flooded my mind. Samurai kneeling before the well, offering blood from slit wrists, their faces serene yet etched with terror. I stumbled back, my EMF meter screeching, its needle pinned to the red. Shapes moved in the shadows, tall, translucent figures with eyes like burning coals, their forms flickering like candle flames. Not human, not Yurei. Something older, hungrier, tied to the earth itself. "Stay," a voice whispered, not in my ears but inside my skull, cold and commanding. I ran, the whispers swelling to wails, a chorus of voices pleading, accusing, hungering. The staircase seemed to stretch endlessly, the air growing heavier, pressing against my chest. Back in my room, I barricaded the door with the low table, clutching Hana's letters like a lifeline. They detailed a forbidden ritual. The Ryokan's founders had discovered the well, a gateway to an ancient entity that promised prosperity in exchange for sacrifice. Every century, a guest was chosen, their life force offered to the thing below to keep the inn thriving. Hana's final letter, dated 1888, was a desperate scrawl. "It calls my name. I won't go. I won't." She vanished that year, her fate erased from the inn's records. Morning brought no relief, the hum now a constant vibration in my bones. I ventured to the Ryokan's library, its shelves sagging under the weight of ancient scrolls and leather-bound tomes. A 17th century text described the inn's founding over a sacred spring guarded by a kami that turned malevolent when the first innkeeper broke a vow of purity. Desperate for wealth, the family struck a pact, offering lives to ensure the Ryokan's longevity. Akamoto found me in the library, his face pale, eyes sunken. "You went below," he said, his voice flat, not a question. "It's awake now. You've stirred it." I demanded answers, my voice sharp with fear and frustration, but he only handed me a small iron key. "The shrine," he said.
"It's your only chance to quiet it."
The shrine, hidden behind the inn in a grove of twisted pines, was small, its torii gate cracked and leaning. Inside, a stone tablet bore the same warding symbols as the trapdoor, their edges worn but sharp. A scroll beside it held a banishing chant, written in ancient kanji, its strokes precise and urgent. I memorized the words, my voice trembling as I practiced, each syllable a shield against the unknown. Night fell, the hum now a deafening roar that shook the walls. Shadows glided through the corridors, humanoid but wrong, their limbs too long, their eyes glowing like embers. I locked myself in the shrine, scattering salt from a ceremonial vial across the threshold. Chanting the ancient words, my voice wavered but grew stronger, each syllable pushing back the darkness. The air grew heavy, the shadows pressing against the wooden walls, their wails piercing my ears. I clutched the vial, pouring the last of the salt as the chant reached its climax. The shadows screeched, a sound like shattering glass, and dissolved into mist, the hum fading to silence. I collapsed, my breath visible in the sudden cold, the shrine's air still and heavy. At dawn, I fled the Ryokan, my notes, photos, and Hana's letters stuffed into my bag. Back in Tokyo, I wrote the story, though my editor softened the supernatural elements, calling them too fantastical for print. The article ran, drawing curious tourists to the Hoshi Ryokan, unaware of the truth pulsing beneath its floors. Akimoto sent a single email. "It sleeps, but not forever. Be careful what you write." I dream of the well now, those coal-like eyes watching from the dark, their gaze inescapable. The Hoshi Ryokan stands, its ancient walls a testament to time, its secrets buried but alive, waiting for the next soul to disturb their rest. The inn's corridors were a maze, each turn revealing faded tapestries, their threads unraveling like forgotten promises. Guest rooms held relics of lives long past, a rusted hairpin, a cracked teacup, a child's sandal half buried in dust. The dining hall smelled of old sake and regret, its tables frozen in a moment of sudden abandonment. Hana's letters spoke of footsteps in the night, always pausing at her door, as if waiting for her to answer. The baths were a paradox, serene yet menacing, the water too still, reflecting the moon like a trap. My grandmother's warnings echoed louder now. Spirits cling to places of power, feeding on those who linger too long. The library's scrolls were fragile, their ink bleeding into the paper like open wounds, telling tales of betrayal. Akimoto's ancestors had known the truth, passing it down in hushed tones, a burden disguised as duty. The shrine felt like a fragile sanctuary, its air thick with expectation, as if the kami itself were watching. The well's chamber was a tomb, its walls alive with carvings that seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. My escape was a blur of fear, the inn's silence as oppressive as the whispers that chased me. In Tokyo, the city's noise couldn't drown the hum that lingered in my memory, faint but persistent. The Ryokan's history is a tapestry of sacrifice, woven with blood, greed, and promises broken. I burned some of my notes, their weight too heavy, but the story lives in me, a scar I can't erase. The Hoshi Ryokan endures, its secrets pulsing beneath the earth, eternal and unforgiving. The mist clung to the hills as I arrived, the air thick with secrets that seemed to seep from the ground. My rental car struggled on the narrow road, tires crunching gravel, the sound swallowed by the fog. The Ryokan's lanterns flickered like wary eyes, watching my approach through the gloom. Akimoto's bow was formal, but his hands trembled, betraying a fear he wouldn't voice. The lobby's koi pond rippled faintly, though no fish swam, the water too still, too perfect. My room's futon was pristine, yet I felt like an intruder, unwelcome in a place that remembered too much. The Mural's dragon seemed to breathe, its scales glinting with a life that wasn't just paint. The Guestbook's final entries were frantic, ink smudged with haste, as if written in flight. The dining hall's silence was louder than any sound, a void that pressed against my chest. Hana's letters were a voice from the past, desperate and unheard, pleading for someone to listen. The bath's steam curled like ghostly fingers, beckoning me closer, promising answers and danger. The trapdoor's symbols were a warning I ignored, my hunger for truth outweighing my fear. The well's light was hypnotic, pulling at my thoughts, my will, like a tide I couldn't resist. The shadows were not just darkness, they moved with purpose, with a hunger that felt alive. The shrine's chant was my lifeline, each word a fragile shield against a force I couldn't name. My flight from the inn was desperate, the mist swallowing my footsteps, as if erasing my presence. In Tokyo, I questioned my sanity, the visions too vivid, the hum too real to dismiss as dreams. The Ryokan's story is a warning, a truth too heavy to carry, too dangerous to share fully. The Hoshi Ryokan waits, its ancient walls hiding a truth that pulses beneath, eternal and unyielding. I stood on the Ryokan's porch that first night, the mist curling around me like a shroud. The air was heavy, the silence broken only by the distant drip of water from the eaves. My flashlight caught glints of the dragon mural, its eyes seeming to glow in the dark. The guest rooms whispered of lives interrupted, their silence louder than any voice. Hana's letters were a cry across time, her fear mirrored in my own racing heart. The baths were a trap, their serenity a lie that hid something ancient and watchful. The library's scrolls were a confession, the inn's history a ledger of blood and bargains. Akimoto's warning was a plea, his eyes reflecting a burden carried for generations. The shrine was my salvation, its ancient power the only thing keeping the shadows at bay. The well was the heart of it all, a gateway to something that should never have been awakened. My escape was a theft, stealing the truth from a place that guards its secrets jealously. The Ryokan's hum follows me still, a reminder that some truths are better left buried. The Hoshi Ryokan stands, its walls a prison for secrets that refuse to die.